the clicker, like this one, allows us to improve our timing when we're training with positive reinforcement. Because a lot of times we're not able to actually give food or scratches immediately during or directly following the desired behavior, especially if we're at a distance from the horse or we're on the horse's back, the clicker allows us to communicate to the horse the exact time that they did the desired behavior and buys us a little bit of leeway until the reinforcer is available to them. So the click happens, then they come to a stop and wait for the food to come to them, and they understand that that was the desired behavior and it triggered the reinforcement receiving behaviors, which is how they receive the reinforcement. So they should do that thing again, because then that makes food happen or scratches. Without the clicker, we are going to be reliant completely on giving the food at the correct time, which can create some confusion or can create some sloppy training results because the timing, there's such a delay. They might have done the correct behavior, such as going over the jump, but if you're not able to give them the positive reinforcer until much later when you can draw the horse to a stop and then give them the scratches or whatever, they may not directly correlate or connect the behavior that ended up receiving the reinforcement, and instead they'll think about it as the last thing that happened that received the reinforcer. So technically, yes, you can use positive reinforcement without a marker, without a bridge signal or what we call a clicker. You can use positive reinforcement all throughout your day when interacting with your horse. And in fact, we do use positive reinforcement consistently and regularly with our horses, whether we realize we are or not. Things like when we put the food into our horse's food pan at feeding time positively reinforces the behaviors that came right before it. When you let your horse out of their gate to go into their grazing pasture, the timing of that and what happened right before positively reinforces the behaviors that came before. So if your horse is pushing at the gate and stomping and chasing off all the other horses, etc., and then you open the gate and they get released into the green pasture, we reinforce those behaviors. Same idea with feeding time. If they're pawing at the door and they're pacing back and forth and they're being really grumpy towards their neighbors, etc., and then we dump the food into the bucket, we reinforce those behaviors with positive reinforcement. What we can do though with the clicker, and allows us to do this if we want to change some of those behaviors, is we could improve the timing of the positive reinforcement. So let's go back to the feeding time example. Let's say that we're trying to improve our horse's behavior around feeding time. Previously, they were pawing and kicking and being grumpy towards their neighbors, etc. during feeding time. And we want to improve those behaviors, but it's hard to get that food into the pan the moment that horse isn't pawing or the moment that horse isn't grumpy towards another horse. So what we can do is we can look for that split second that the horse is not pawing, click that, dump food. And if the horse understands what the clicker means, then it will have they'll have connected the dots there. They'll have said, oh, I wasn't pawing and I got the click, and then food. Now, this of course we'll want to look at more in depth going forward, making sure that we're not accidentally creating large loops of behavior where they're pawing and kicking and doing all the things, and then they stop pawing and then they get the click and the food, because we'll actually reinforce all of that. But that's going to be discussed later on. This is more about talking about what the clicker is for and why it's so powerful and why we really want to be utilizing it when we're training with positive reinforcement.